Thank you for joining us today for the meeting of the New York City Health and Hospitals Board of Directors. Today's meeting is officially called to order. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes for the board meeting held October 29th, 2020. Are there any questions, comments, or suggested changes? May I have a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, let's, second.
Second.
Let's have a vote. Dr. Katz,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Melanie Hartzog.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Calamia,
Yes.
Dr. Day Choksi. Dave, Hillary Kunings, Dr. Kunings,
She's not there.
okay. Scott French,
Not there.
Helen Arteaga Landaverde, Barbara Lowe,
Yes.
thank you. Robert Nolan,
Here.
Sally Hernandez Piñero,
Yes. Yes.
Benioski Peña Mora,
Yes.
and Anita Kawatra.
Yes.
Thank you so much. The minutes have been approved. During the executive session, the board received and approved oral governing body submissions from NYC H&H Harlem, Henry Carter Nursing Facility, and Specialty Hospital. The board received and approved semi-annual governing body reports, written submissions from NYC Health and Hospitals Metropolitan and Woodhull. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to move things around a little bit, and we're going to move through the resolutions. We have quite a bit of them. So let's get started with number 12. And actually, that's me. So.
Hold on 1 minute, please. Fanny, can you please recuse on the record?
Okay, yeah, I have to recuse myself. So what do? I leave and then come back, or?
Yes, please log out and I will text you when to come back in.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Fanny.
Claire already left as well.
Thank you. So this resolution is authorizing the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation to negotiate and execute requirements contracts with 7 construction management consultant firms, namely ACOM USA, Arman Corporation, Gilvane Building Company, Jacobs Project Management Company, McKissick and McKissick, TDX Construction, McLeod Project Management, and McLeod Group, to provide professional construction management services on an as-needed basis at various facilities throughout the corporation. The contract shall be for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year options for renewal, solely exercisable by NYC H&H, for a cumulative amount not to exceed $10 million for services provided by all such consultants. And this was approved in the Capital and IT Joint Committee meeting November 5th.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? My name is Oscar Gonzalez, Assistant Vice President of Facilities Development for H&H. This was a request to enter into construction management contracts. Quick overview. This H&H requires professional construction management services on an as-needed basis for projects throughout the system. Services include construction administration functions, such as scheduling, inspection of work, performing progress analysis, preparing contractor evaluations, various types of testing, and having qualified staff on the projects. The current contracts in place for the CM services expire on December 31st, 2020. The pool value is $15 million. Current spend for the CM services, $7,644,000. The current term is 3 years and 2 one-year options. Quick overview on the procurement. The procurement started last year on October, where we got CRC approval. In February, we posted on City Record, and we had a conference call where 40 vendors attended. We received 19 proposals on February 28th. We had a slight delay, and in on September 18th, we received all the proposals, we reviewed them, scored them, and we brought in 12 vendors back in for presentations. 3 of those 12 vendors were MWBEs that were shortlisted. On October 15th, we evaluated all the vendors, and we concluded having 7 vendors, to be awarded the contracts. Out of those 7, 3 were MWBE. Next slide will show you the name of the vendors. As Jose stated them before, the 3 to highlight that were MWBE were Armand, McKissick and McKissick, and the McLeod Group, all in good standing or excellent standing. There's some previous work that they've done, and the agencies that they've done the work with. So this is a 3-year with 2 one-year options to renew, effective no later than January 1st, 2020. Total pool contract value of $10 million with a 30% MWE utilization plan. The next 2 slides will show you the utilization plan by each vendor, and it shows all the subcontractors associated in their proposal. I'll take any questions.
Any questions on the resolution?
Yes,
Board members?
yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'd like to know what the process is for assessing the needs for construction throughout our vast number of buildings and facilities. Just briefly.
So this has a lot to do with our capital planning and the amount of work that we have, the amount of work that's funded through our OMB group, also balanced out with the new needs that we have. And in addition, the resources that we have in place to be able to manage our construction projects. So if we cannot hire the staff internally to manage such projects, then we have to seek consultants to supplement our staffing needs.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so I would like to then call for a vote on the resolution. Dr. Katz,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hartzog,
Yes.
thank you. Dr. Calamia,
Yes.
Dr. Shakshi, Hillary Cunnings, Scott French, Helen Arteaga,
Yes.
Barbara Lowe,
Yes.
thank you. Robert Nolan,
Yes.
Sally Hernandez Piñeiro,
Yes.
Frida Wang,
Yes.
Benioski Peña Mora. I'm sorry.
He recused
Yeah.
himself.
He
He
recused.
recused himself. Yeah, Anita Kawatra.
Yes.
Thank you so much. The resolution passes. Thank you, Oscar.
Okay, thank you.
We're gonna move on to action item number 4. Dr. Calamia.
Thank you. Amending the resolution approved by the Board of Directors of the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, the system, at its October 2015 meeting, authorizing the system to negotiate and enter into an agreement with the Physician Affiliate Group of New York, PC, PAGNY, for the furnishing of staff required to provide physical and behavioral health services to persons in the custody of the New York City Department of Correction, a copy of which is attached here too, to restate the not to exceed amount for the remaining 2-year terms of the agreement, exercisable solely by the system, as $420 million. This was approved at unanimously approved at the joint meeting of the Medical and Professional Affairs and Finance Committee on November 5th, 2020.
Hi, my name is Patsy Yang. I'm the Senior Vice President for Correctional Health Services. The original agreement with PAGNY ran from the period of January of 2016 through to 2018, with an option to renew 3 times for successive 2-year terms. The first renewal period ends next month, and to avoid disruption in care for our patients, we need to exercise our option renewal, to begin January of 2021 and to run through 2022. Next slide will show you that by background, the agreement Correctional Health Services, CHS, transitioned from being a contracted service under the Health Department to being a direct service provider as part of Health and Hospitals. The Health Department's contract expired in December of 2015. In preparation for this transition, we negotiated an affiliation arrangement with PAGNI effective January of 2016. Under this arrangement, frontline providers are hired by PAGNI. These are primarily medical staff and mental health staff. CHS's commitment to workforce diversity and the provision of culturally relevant and sensitive care is reflected in the staff that PAGNI has hired. The question came up of the racial composition of our staff relative to our patients. They are actually mirrors of one another. 88% of the PAGNI staff are self-identify as non-white, 63% of whom are Black. Our patients similarly self-identify 88% as non-white, 63% of whom are Black. Where we don't reflect our patient population is in gender. 59% of the PAGNI staff are female, 8% of our patients are female. What we do, because of the circumstances of the transition, there are a number of aspects in CHS's arrangement with PAGNI that are particular to our situation. Specifically, the PAGNI contract is funded as part of CHS's budget, which comes directly from the city. We're not part of the expense or the budget of Health and Hospitals. We run on a calendar year basis, and PAGNI hires people for members who are Doctors Council and 1199 members. Only frontline healthcare professionals are on PAGNI. There are no supervisory or management staff on PAGNI payroll. All the leadership, clinical, and supervision comes from us at Health and Hospitals. It includes only payroll, no OTPS, and includes specific accountability requirements where PAGNI provides us with biweekly payrolls, monthly general ledgers, and cash balances that we can do reconciliations. The next slide will show you the level of expenses relative to budget, and you will see that in FY19 and 20, we reduced the payments by about $4 million each of those years. So in conclusion, what we are seeking from the board is approval to increase the not to exceed amount for each of the subsequent 2-year extensions from 192,843,453 to $210 million for cost of living increases in our initiatives to improve care. That would result in a total of 420,000,000 for the remainder of the potential 4 years of the contract. And I'll take questions.
Any questions from board members for Dr. Yang?
Sorry, Patsy, could you, I might have missed what you said. Why was there a reduction in payments from your initial budget in the historical numbers you showed?
In FY19 and 20, most of the reductions that we held back are against budgeted amount, and they reflect our reconciliations in terms of mostly vacancies, workers' compensation payments, and things like that that we need to make.
Okay. So that's just a function of the operational, you didn't end up needing to spend it, basically.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
This is Feniowski. I have a question.
Feniowski, go ahead.
Yeah, again, thank you for your presentation. I have a question. We are, the whole process of closing down Rikers and moving some of the kind of the residents in some of the facilities in Manhattan. Is that going to affect this type of contract in terms of the personnel and the allocation of the personnel, or that's already been taken into consideration?
It is being taken into consideration. We've already begun with our partner at the Department of Correction to close jails as the census has been reduced. Staff have been reassigned wherever our patients go. The staff follow. We're also accounting for a lot of our initiatives and service changes in terms of models of care, and the staff reflect that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to call for a vote now. Dr. Katz,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Melanie Hartzog.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Calamia,
Yes.
Dr. Dave Shoxi, Helen Arteaga Landaverde,
Yes.
Barbara Lowe,
Yes.
Robert Nolan,
Yes.
Sally Hernandez Piñero,
Yes.
Frida Wang,
Yes.
Fenioski Peña Mora,
Yes.
and Anita Kawatra.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Then the resolution passes. Go ahead.
Calaman needs to.
The next one,
Dr. Calaban?
Yeah, sorry.
You were on mute.
Yes.
You wanted to do the correction?
That, I'm trying to find the place. Was that?
The terms,
Let's
the
see.
options, the term
Yes.
options. You had a question.
Yeah, I'm looking here. I think. Yeah. Yeah, that was on the third action item.
Okay,
So we're good.
thank you.
Yeah, we're okay with that one.
okay, so you have the next one also. Action item number 2.
Okay, item 2 is authorizing the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, the system, to execute a 10-year agreement with Omnicell Inc. to provide Omnicell medication automated dispensing machines, ADMs, for the system's acute care facilities and Carter LTAC, anesthesia workstations, AWS, and associated inventory management equipment and software, diversion detection, predictive and analytic software, and sterile product preparation with a total amount not to exceed $75,651,031. Again, this was approved at the Joint Medical and Professional Affairs and Finance Committee of November 5th, 2020.
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Wilson, Senior Assistant Vice President of Strategic Sourcing. New York City Health and Hospitals acute care facilities have utilized automated dispensing machines, or medication cabinets as they're called, for medication storage since 2002. There are approximately 1,900 of these units in the system, and today none of these dispensing cabinets are currently interfaced to an inventory management software, an ordering system, nor a billing system. All devices are leased with service support agreements, and our current provider is BD Care Fusion under the trade name of Pyxis since 2002. And the current agreement that is coming to an end is a 7-year agreement for $38,418,000. The market state, or the current state in which we would like to evolve New York City Health and Hospitals to, is to integrate the medication cabinets with an inventory software to optimize safety, reduce risk, enhance quality, reduce costs, and increase revenue. There are only 2 vendors who offer this integrated solution, Omnicell and BD Care Fusion. Both of these vendors only support the software with their own cabinets. Both vendors offer the needed IV prep and anesthesia workstations, and both vendors confirm that they can meet the Active Directory compliance and security requirements from Enterprise EITS. As we move forward to implement Omnicell in our future state, what we are looking to do is mainly on this top line, create a complete line of sight of drugs from the distributor to the shelf, to the compounding area or cabinet, including the refrigerated items, to the patient. Increase access and visibility to system-wide pharmacy inventory through real-time actionable reports with dashboards with cost of goods on hand to drive financial management reviews. This will also address critical sterile compounding challenges. It'll improve our ability to standardize our formulary across the system. It'll reduce our IT cost by reducing these multiple software interfaces and network services in a central model. And what we'll also do is provide a one-time cost reduction as these facilities institute par-level inventory. We will also reduce expired medication with appropriately adjusted inventory levels. For the overview of the procurement, supply chain conducted a negotiated acquisition with pricing due diligence because there are only 2 vendors who occupy the space. Omnicell is less expensive over the 10-year agreement that has been proposed by $4.5 million. Nursing and pharmacy leadership across all facilities participated in the technology review from both vendors, and Omnicell is utilized by many of our peers in New York, such as NYU Langone, New York Presbyterian, a little further into the greater New York area at Hackensack Meridian, and further away at Massachusetts General and Centara Healthcare. We had reference checks with NYU Langone and NYP, and they both provided positive references. Supply chain had presented these findings and award recommendation to the CEO Council, CNO Council, EITS Leadership, Finance, and the Directors of Pharmacy Council. All groups were in favor of awarding Omnicell. The MWB utilization plan for this is 62.5%. All of the leasing that will go through this will go through a WBE, Corporate Leasing Associated, who is a New York State certified WBE. Supply Chain Services seeking approval to enter into contract with Omnicell for an inpatient pharmacy inventory management system, including automated dispensing cabinets. It'll be a 10-year agreement utilizing fair market value leases with the target go live for September of 21, with the implementation of all hardware and software to be completed by the end of fiscal year 24, which permits sequential facility-specific transitions to the new system in concert, working with local governance of nursing, pharmacy, IT, and operations. The cost over the lifetime of the agreement will be $75,651,031. New York City Health and Hospitals will receive a one-time rebate from Omnicell for $5,139,632, and the WBE subcontracting plan will be 62%.
Thank you so much. Any questions from board members?
Yes, please. Will the medication cabinets be provided within the correctional health system as well?
They are eligible to use the contract. So if they have this need, they can take advantage of any one of the technologies within the contract.
Thank you.
Jose, I have a question as well.
Yes.
Technology is moving so fast. In the contract, is there something that says, if they come out with like a newer machine, or now there's a newer option that they, because 10 years is a lot. I mean, it will go fast, but with technology moving so quickly, because of the pandemic, is there room to get the upgrades, or like, how is that adjusted in the contract for 10 years?
Absolutely. So within the service cost are all of the software upgrades.
Okay.
So that is built into that cost.
Jose, I have a comment.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to congratulate you and Danielle for putting this contract together, particularly on your MWB utilization. I think this has been the highest utilization that we have seen in any contract. I may be wrong, but at least for what I remember. And I just want to congratulate you for being so kind of dedicated and creative, ensuring that we as a system get the best value for the services that we are requiring, but also making sure that we bring all the talents that can contribute to it. So I just want to congratulate you, Danielle, and the team for such a wonderful job, and I really, really appreciate it, and I know that a lot of other people will appreciate it.
Thank you, Fanny. Okay, so I want to call for a vote. Dr. Katz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Melanie Hartzog?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Calamia?
Yes.
Dr. Dave Shoxi? Helen Arteaga Landaverde?
Yes.
Barbara Lowe? Bart? Robert Nolan? Bob Nolan? Sally Hernandez Piñero?
Yes.
Frida Wang?
Yes.
Penioski Peña Mora?
Yes.
And yes for Barbara Lowe. I was muted. Sorry.
Thank you, Barbara. So the resolution passes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Joe. So we move on to the next one, number 4 in the agenda. I'm sorry, number 3 in the agenda. Who's introducing this one? Dr. Calamia?
All right. Before I do, actually, I apologize. Khaleesi, you had reminded me, and I forgot to bring up in the fourth, actually, action item. I do believe the correct wording should have referred to the remaining 2 one-year terms of the agreement. If I'm wrong, I don't know if Patsy's still here. Please let me know. But if so, then we would have to amend it to say 2 one-year terms of agreement.
I thought it was 2-year term.
The additional, that's what I was not sure of. Is it the amount for the 2 1-year or 2-year? Can you help me with that?
Yeah, it's 2 2-year terms.
It was 2, so never mind that we need to do nothing, and I will move on to item 3. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying. I appreciate it. Item 3 is authorizing the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, the system, to execute a 3-year agreement with 2, that should read 1-year renewals, solely at the system's discretion with Crot Hall Healthcare, Inc., to provide environmental management services for all the system's facilities for an amount not to exceed $121,273,900. This was approved at the Joint Medical Professional Affairs and Finance Committee of November 5th, 2020.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Paul Albertson. I'm the Vice President of Supply Chain Services. I'm here to present the request to enter into contract with Crothall Health Services for the management of the Health and Hospitals Environmental Services Program. In 2010, Health and Hospitals developed a competitive RFP process for the management of these services. Crothall Health was selected and awarded a 9-year agreement in 2011. Over the past 9 years, in concert with the facility leadership, Crothall has reduced supply expenses by $39 million, helped right-size the staffing workforce through attrition of 240 positions with no layoffs, standardized cleaning products, cleaning processes, and our infection prevention practices. And together we have improved our HCAP scores by 10%, as scored by patients on their observations of health and hospitals cleanliness. Following consultation with our facility leaders, an updated RFP was posted to include a number of additional deliverables, such as planning and implementing surge staffing, monthly facility-based leadership meetings, enhanced service level agreements and metrics, and enhanced human resources, labor relations management, as we have more than 1,200 environmental health and hospitals workers, and we recognize that all of us benefit from a more collaborative and standardized approach. 3 companies submitted proposals: Sodexo, Aramark, and Crothall. Crothall was a recommended vendor of choice by all members, evaluated more favorably in each of the review categories, which were substantiveness of proposal, quality and appropriateness of the firm's experience, and cost over the other 2 companies. The evaluation committee's recommendation was discussed with the facility chief operating officers and the chief executive officers, and both groups also endorsed this selection. In our proposed agreement, Crothall has agreed to the following to enhance their team and practices: add a human resources leader dedicated to health and hospitals, add an additional regional director to lead facility-based engagement, invest $2.5 million in new technology and equipment, upgrade all of our hand sanitizer technology to touchless rather than the wall-mounted at their expense, maintain current contract pricing going forward, provide a one-time credit of $4.5 million, and develop a contingency plan to execute to managing escalating demands of all hazards for safety and continuity of care. We have a 30% commitment on NWBE utilization with 3 certified vendors, and our request today is to receive approval to enter into a 3-year contract with Crothall for environmental services management with 2 one-year extensions solely exercisable by health and hospitals. The cost over the life of the agreement is $121,273,900. We have a 30% MWBE utilization plan, and I thank you very much, and pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions from board members?
I just like to understand, are these all unionized employees?
Yes, the probably 99% of the 1,200 health and hospital employees are represented by unions. We have a few managerial employees on the health and hospital staff.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Paul, this is Bob Nolan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Bob Nolan.
Paul, Crothall has a history with health and hospitals because I know on the board for now, 8 years? I know I've recommended the Crothall for several contracts. Can you just briefly tell me what our contract history is for Crothall?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Nolan. In addition to managing the environmental services, Crothall also manages our central service management program, and they also manage our biomedical equipment program. A partner of theirs, Compass, is also the vendor who was selected for our, 450 vending machines that we have throughout the organizations as well.
So would you say that you're comfortable recommending this particular organization to be the recipient of this contract based on not only their presentation, but their previous experience?
Yes, and I think our conversations really have been with every one of our chief operating officers and every one of our chief executive officers to get their feedback related to the services, the program. I work very closely with the Crothall leadership along with Mercedes Redwood, who leads our day-to-day management with them. And we really have found them to be responsive partners to us and have done a good job for us that we know will continue and be enhanced with these services that they've agreed to provide as well.
Thank you, Paul. Back to you, Jose. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so any other questions? So I'll call for a vote then. Dr. Katz,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Melanie Hartzog,
Yes.
Dr. Calamia,
Yes.
Dr. Dave Shoxi, Helen Arteaga Landaverde,
Yes.
Barbara Lowe,
Yes.
Robert Nolan,
Yes.
Sally Hernandez Piñero,
Yes.
Frida Wang,
Yes.
Fenioski Peña Mora.
Yes.
Okay, so the resolution passes. Thank you so much. Let's move to the next one, number 5 on our action items. I think this one, Dr. Peña Mora reads it.
I read it? Okay. Thank you.
Two. He reads 5 and 6.
He reads. So you do the next two.
Fanny, you're gonna read 5 and 6 together with one presentation.
Okay.
And we'd vote separately on each one.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Colisha. So the resolution is authorizing New York City Health and Hospital Corporation, the system, to execute a 5-year and 3-month lease agreement with 4 2-year renewal options solely at the system's discretion with QTS Investment Properties Piscataway, LLC, owner for the system use and occupancy of space at 101 Postone Road, Piscataway, New Jersey, 08854. In owner's data storage facility, the PDC, which shall be sufficient for 100 data storage racks or cabinets with the provision of 450 kilowatt of power after ramp up, with the right to expansion space and power, the right to reduce the system's use of space and power, and service terms as detailed in the summary of economic terms attached here too, at a cost not to exceed $14,820,000. This was presented to the Capital and the Information Technology Committee on November 5th, and it was approved to be forwarded to the board for discussion. The second one, number 6, authorizing New York City Health and Hospital Corporation, the system, to execute a 5-year and 3-month lease agreement with 4 2-year renewal options solely at the system discretion with Cervalis LLC, a subsidiary of Cyrus One, owner for the system use and occupancy of space at 6 Northern Plaza Place, Norwalk, Connecticut, 06855, in owner's data storage facility, the NDC, which shall be sufficient for 100 data storage racks or cabinets with the provision of 450 kilowatt of power after ramp up, with the right to expansion, space, and power, the right to reduce the system use of space and power and service terms as detailed in the summary of economic terms attached here too, at a cost not to exceed $17,160,000. Again, this was presented to the Capital and Information Technology Committee on November 5th, and it was approved to be forwarded to the board for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kim Mendez. I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer. I'd like to provide a brief strategy overview, and then I'll be joined by Jeff Lutz, our Chief Technology Officer, to present the details. Our current data centers are approaching the end of useful life. As we prepare to update our data center solution, we leverage Gartner's best practice research and tools in our review of options in our selection process. As you are aware, Gartner is a trusted resource and advisor for us for information and technology procurement for over 10 years. It is IT's vision to strategically align the migration of our data center hosting sites with our already planned and budgeted system infrastructure refresh to gain efficiencies where possible. Important to note here is that the refresh budget and the data center hosting site leases budget are independent of each other. However, our goal is to leverage and time the equipment refresh to avoid any unnecessary cost that might be incurred because of the move. I'll turn over to Jeff.
Thank you, Kim, and good afternoon. So the first slide that you saw there previously, that highlighted that today we have 2 data centers, and this provides all of the connectivity as well as the hosting for our systems, such as Epic, that are currently used across the system today. So as Kim had mentioned, we had engaged Gartner to assist us in a study to understand and provide strategy and future for our data centers as we are looking out to build and go forward. So within this slide here, it talks about some of the requirements that we wanted to look at to have a base understanding as we look forward, and including a few things like being more than 50 miles apart. Today we are about 12 miles apart, as well as we wanted to allow for a little more flexibility in our contracts, as well as look at the ability for us to leverage cloud as technology advances and this becomes more prevalent across the landscape. So the next part, this talks about, these are some of the findings that Gartner came back with as our recommendation. The recommendation that they came back with was to look for 2 new data centers to replace the existing SunGard and Jacoby data centers. A couple things I will highlight here include Jacoby has some needed upgrades that are going to be, that would be required for us to allow for the data center to continue. And SunGard is very costly. If you remember, we were here in the fall of 2019 for the renewal, as well as there's concerns over that it's within the flood zone and other concerns in that area. So, and at the same time, Gartner also recommended, just like other healthcare organizations and many organizations out there, that we start to look at and encompass the use of cloud within our system. So based on that, we went through a solicitation and in partnership with both Gartner subject matter experts and Newmark, Knight and Frank, who also is a realtor that's helped us with other locations such as 50 Water. We've come to, we selected QTS and Cyrus One. You see those there. They are 79 miles apart. Currently, there are 2, there's healthcare, NYU is in QTS, and Yale New Haven is in Cyrus One. So the other piece I'll highlight here is that the base rate for each of these, so what's a little bit different within a data center, they, instead of charging in a traditional lease like per square feet, they charge us based on power and our consumption of our power. So we have a base rate in QTS of $105 per kilowatt, and in Cyrus One, it's $109 per kilowatt. And the big difference is it's just more expensive for power in Connecticut than it is in New Jersey. So while MWBE is not necessarily a requirement as it relates to leases, we have been engaged with both these vendors to talk about their their vendor diversity and use of MWBEs. So this is an example. Cyrus One has a program that they report on quarterly. And when they combine both their tier 1 and their tier 2 suppliers, their usage is 10% across the board. And this is similar data that we are working with QTS. Their program is not as mature yet, but we look forward to receiving similar data from them as well going forward. So the agreements, as mentioned, they're 5-year with 3 months. So we get 3 months of free rent and 4 2-year renewals. We pay for metered usage. We pay for what we use. There is a locked 2.5% annual increase on that base rate. And we also have the chance to, at each renewal, we can go with either what's the current rate or the 100% of the fair market value as determined by Newmark and the vendor. So whichever of those two is the lower. And as well, if we choose not to renew, we actually can go month to month for 12 months at 125% of the previous month. We also have in there at 24 months and 48 months the ability for us to reduce down our footprint as well. So as we make the move to the cloud and require less data center space, we can actually reduce that as well. So here, very quickly, I want to show you, if you look at the top right, this shows what we are spending for SunGard today. If we were to take everything in SunGard and everything in Jacoby and move them like for like over to the 2 new data center locations, we would actually end up with close to a $200,000 annual savings. But we anticipate in our move that we will actually be able to gain efficiencies and have a smaller footprint. So below, you will look at the annual cost is actually $2.5 million versus the $3.2 million. So we are anticipating at least almost a $1.5 million savings that we would be able to realize. And again, with our ability to shrink in the future, there's additional opportunity for cost savings there. So we will take and look to move over the next 3 years. All of that is built into the contracts. The first big milestone for us would be the end of October of 2022, which is when our current SunGard agreement ends, and we would like to be out before that. Two more things I'd like to highlight as we migrate. First off, that as these are very secure, high-end locations, even though the cost is less, we are actually going in with leaders. SunGard has been very good to us, but one of the challenges, as you saw, is that they are expensive. So we'll actually be improving service while lowering costs. At the same time, while it's shared space, we actually have a dedicated area where all of our equipment goes to, is stored, and it is actually blocked off by caging, fencing, and there is no shared connections with any of the other tenants within these locations. So our data and all of our information is retained, all the same security, both physical as well as the technical security that we have implemented today. And so the first piece that we will do is to bring these systems online, or to bring these data centers online into our network, so they would be added into that first diagram. And so again, they gain all of those efficiencies and all of those same protections that we have today, and then we would electronically move as we go into these data centers. Jacoby itself we will not move out of it fully. It will actually continue to support the Jacoby campus, providing connectivity much like we have at any of our other facilities today. And so again, today we're asking to enter into a 5-year contract with 4 2-year renewal options. For QTS, it would be an estimated value of $14.8 million. For Cyrus One, it would be a total estimated value of $17.2 million over the 13 years. Thank you, and please take any questions.
Any questions from board members?
Yeah, this is Mr. Nolan from the Bronx.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. How many jobs are associated with this movement out of Jacoby Medical Center up into Connecticut?
So any of the people that are, good question. So they'll actually, those same resources will actually, sorry, those resources will actually be working out of these two locations. We do not leverage what they call smart hands, except for on emergencies. We have health and hospital staff at these locations, and they will continue to. Those that were working at Jacoby will actually work out of Norwalk, or out of QTS, depending on what's closer for them.
And how far is that away from the Jacoby campus?
Good.
Well, because you're just assuming that people who work at Jacoby will just, get into their cars or wherever else and drive up to Connecticut. So I'm curious as to how far they're going to have to go.
It's many of them actually live in. Apologize, I'm not fully familiar with the name. Just north of Jacoby there, in that area. So it's a very similar drive to what they have today. Actually, not necessarily as much traffic, but time-wise, it's very similar to what they have today. They're fully aware. We've been talking with them. Some of them have actually visited the site.
I would assume that some people some days will be virtually commuting as well.
Yes.
Right. I mean, look at all of us, right? None of us are necessarily where our meeting is either, right? The world is incredibly virtual. So I would hope that some of the time they would be able to just, work from home or work from Jacoby or wherever is best.
Correct. Yes. And for some,
Did you
it's
make
actually,
any other
I think, a
efforts to
shorter
find-
commute.
Did you make any other effort to find any other location in the Bronx? You did talk about expanding as one option at Jacoby, and I was curious as to why that was rejected, and whether you made any other effort to see whether the Bronx or perhaps one of our neighboring boroughs would be a better location than Connecticut.
We looked, part of our requirements was to look outside of the city. We did look, there was one data center that is not too far from where Jacoby is. Unfortunately, they did not meet our criteria. We wanted to make sure that we had distance from both the hospitals. Jacoby, while it was great for where we are today, many organizations are moving away from hosting and building. So we would have improvements. We have certain limitations and issues that are there today, and then that would cost a lot of costly improvements would be needed to maintain and provide the same level of security and the same level of connectivity for us to leverage new technology such as the cloud. So
Final question, do you have, final question, what was Mr. Mastromano's reaction, the CEO at Jacoby, to your recommendation?
I don't know that I've talked to him. I mean, again, we're not moving out of there, so the overall presence will be less inside, but it actually has to remain in place because that's pivotal for providing the connectivity to the rest of the campus today. So for the medical center, so it's.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the slide talking about the Cyrus One supply diversity. I just have two questions. One is this data that they're presenting here is for their overall company-wide expenditure. Is that correct? So it's 10% of their expenditure. Okay.
They're corporate-wide, worldwide.
Worldwide, and they are going to continue to supply this because it's something that they supply quarterly in terms. Do we have, by any chance, following up on Robert's comments in terms of if there is any of those businesses that are here in New York? I think that would be interesting to know. I don't expect you to know that, but it will be good if one of those businesses are from New York.
They said we could. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. In the conversations, unfortunately, we didn't have it at the time, but they said in the future we could get specific to that data center. Correct.
Okay.
So we'll hopefully be able to provide that in a future update.
That would be great. And also, what is our expectation for QTS, which is also another public company similar to Cyrus One, in providing this type of data, at least for their normal reporting quarterly on their businesses and diversification of their pool?
Yes. So the expectation they have just started on this program, but they are doing a similar program, and we've asked them to. Our expectation is by towards the end of under year 2021, we should be able to receive the same information that we're receiving from Cyrus One, at least on the corporate global level, and with the expectation of eventually getting to our New Jersey details.
And did they committed to that, or they just conversations?
No, we in the initial conversations, and they have committed to it. The program is underway, but they do not have information to report out at this time.
Okay,
So
thank
we wanted
you.
to give them time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so I want to move now to a vote. Dr. Katz?
Yes.
So there are two resolutions. So the first one is for QTS.
Yes.
Yes. Deputy Mayor Melanie Hartzog,
Yes.
Dr. Calamia,
Yes.
Dr. Dave Choksi.
Yes.
Thank you. Helen Arteaga Landaverde,
Yes.
Barbara Lowe. Barbara? Okay. Robert Nolan,
Yes.
Sally Hernandez Pinheiro,
Yes.
Frida Wang,
Yes.
Fenioski Peñamora,
Yes.
and I'm going to go back then. So the resolution passes. So I'm going to go for the second one, the one for Cyrus One, number 6 in your agenda. Dr. Katz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Melanie Hartzog,
Yes.
Dr. Calamia,
Yes.
Dr. Dave Shoxi,
Yes.
Helen Arteaga Landaverde,
Yes. Yes.
Barbara Lowe, Robert Nolan,
Yes.
Sally Hernandez Pinheiro,
Yes.
Frida Wang,
Yes.
Fenioski Peñamora.
Yes.
Thank you. So the resolution passes. Miss Lowe, say that again.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's move to the next one, number 7
No, sorry.
in your Dr. Peñamora.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Authorizing the New York City Health and Hospital Corporation, the system, to execute 5 successive one-year revocable license agreements with the New York City Human Resources Administration, HRA, for the use and occupancy of approximately 9,930 square feet of space at 114-02 Guy Brewer Boulevard, Borough of Queens, known as the South Jamaica Multi-Service Center, to operate various ambulatory healthcare services managed by Gotham Health, Gotham, and a Women, Infants, and Children program, the WIC program, managed by New York City Health and Hospital Queens Hospital Center, the facility, at an occupancy fee of $25 per square foot, a $2 per square foot utility surcharge, and $1 per square foot seasonal cooling charge for a total of $203,094.25 per year, and a 5-year total of $1,015,471.25 for the Gotham space, and $67,497.25 per year, and a 5-year total of $337,486.25 for the WIC program space. This was discussed by the Capital and Information Technology Committee on November 5th, and it was approved to be forwarded to the board for consideration.
Good afternoon. My name is Christine Flaherty, Senior Vice President, Office of Facilities Development. I'm joined today over the phone by Dr. Ted Long, Senior Vice President, Ambulatory Care, Gotham Health, and Interim CEO, Dean Mahaltis from Queens Hospital. The current state is New York City Human Resources Administration oversees a program. It allows other city agencies and non-for-profits to utilize multi-service centers at a lower rate located in city-owned buildings for the provision of community-oriented services. Those fees are charged to the occupants and designed to cover the cost to operate the building. And New York City Health and Hospitals signs 1-year occupancy agreements with the nonprofit Neighboring Housing Services of Jamaica and New York City HRA for this site. In 2015, the H&H's Board of Directors authorized the execution of 5 1-year agreements over a 5-year period for this site. And now this covers the background of the two different areas that we're occupying within this center, including the Gotham Health Primary Care Programs that I'm going to have Dr. Ted Long speak to briefly.
Thank you, Christine. It's good to talk to and see everybody on the WebEx today. So this is one of our Queens Community Health Centers. In particular, this is our South Queens Community Health Center, and we provide pediatric and obstetrics and gynecology care at this center. We have over 2,600 annual visits, and it's something that we're trying to grow out in this community in Queens as a resource to the community as well. We've been there for some time, and our 5-term of the 1-year agreements is running out now, so we'd like to continue our presence and grow it further, expanding our pediatric and OBGYN services to the South Queens community.
Thanks so much, Dr. Long. And we also have Dean Mahaltis on, who is here for this and the second resolution on WIC. If you go to the last slide, I'll show the locations of our 2 WIC sites. Dean, did you want to say a few words at all about this WIC center? No, nothing except that it does provide nutritional support services to a vulnerable population, and they've been there quite a long time and they've done an excellent job. And the rates are basically rates that cover the basic costs. Thank you so much. Next slide shows the occupancy fee associated with this space. This is $25 per square foot, $2 per square foot for utilities, and $1 for seasonal cooling. And this shows you the square footage, our annual occupancy, utilities, and the 5-year total for this 5-year agreement. I would note that the WIC program is covered by the New York State Health Grant, and we administer that on behalf of the state. The next slide shows the map that demonstrates the location of the Guy Brewer Boulevard location, 2.3 miles from Queens Hospital, which gives you a sense of the catchment area of the patients that we're serving, both for Gotham as well as WIC. And at this point, I believe we're ready to take questions from any of our board.
Any questions from board members? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Thank you, Christine, by the way.
Thank you.
Dr. Katz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Melanie Hartzog?
Yes.
Dr. Calamia?
Yes.
Dr. Shokshi?
Yes.
Helen Arteaga Landaverde?
Yes.
Barbara Lowe?
Yes.
I'm not sure where it's located.
Robert Nolan?
Hold on for a second. Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Sally Hernandez Piñero?
Yes.
Frida Wang?
Yes.
Frida?
Yes.
Peñamora? Fenioski Peñamora?
Yes.
And I don't know if Anita has joined. Okay, so the resolution passes.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm back.
Thank you.
So I read number 8.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Authorizing New York City Health and Hospital Corporation, the system, to sign a 1-year lease extension with Dr. Michael Cantus, the landlord, for the use of approximately 4,000 square feet of space at 7918 164th Street, Borough of Queens, to operate a supplemental food program for women, infants, and children. The WIC program, managed by New York City Health and Hospital Queens Hospital Center, the facility, at a base rent of $137,360 per year, or $34.34 per square foot, plus a common area maintenance by EAM charge of $14,199.96 per year, and a real estate taxes of approximately $38,416 per year, for a total annual occupancy cost of $189,975.96, or $47.49 per square foot, provided the system will hold an option to renew this lease for an additional 4 years. This was discussed in the Capital and Information Technology Committee on November 5th, and it was approved to be forwarded to the board for consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, Christine Flaherty again. Good to see you. I'm also joined again by Dean Mahaltis from Queens Hospital. This WIC site is located closer to the hospital and it occupies 4,000 square feet. I'll let Dean speak really briefly about the site and the value for the hospital. We can't hear you, Dean. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dean Mahal. The site is 0.3 miles from the hospital. It's been in its current location for 8 years. As a program, it's been around for 20 years, supported again. It's a DOH grant program that provides nutritional risk assessment for women, infants, and children, as well as education in that area, breastfeeding support, and for high-risk counseling. The site has a 5-year lease. We are looking to renew the lease with 1 year to coincide with the renewal of the grant itself, so we would not be financially liable beyond that. And then with a 4-year extension once our grant is renewed in September of 20 and 21. We are also doing some work on the site. Just want to point out that we are replacing the awning and doing some facade work to improve the site appearance. And in terms of a long-term assessment, we will probably be looking for a new site, which in a new professional space in the neighborhood. But the site does serve 3,600 participants. And as you can see from the next slide, the rent has a 2.5% incremental rise. But again, we have a 1-year option at the 1-year mark, an option to go 4 more years to coincide with our grant approval. And the last slide is the map showing the proximity to the hospital. We strongly support the site, and many of our pediatric and our women, our patients here also utilize that service. I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Dean.
Any questions from board members?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If we can go back to the slide that presents the picture of the entrance to this facility, please. Again, I know how hard we are working to ensure that we are good neighbors and good kind of a resource for our community. And this is the kind of the welcoming place for people that are in need and are looking support. And I would say that the facade and the kind of the aesthetic of this place is a little bit in the depressing side that will kind of, if I have to go there, I will feel really like a message is not the one that I will expect. I just want to kind of communicate that because we all have to strive to make sure that we provide welcoming place for our communities. And I feel that this may not look as welcoming as we all would like to be. I don't know.
I am in full agreement with your observation. For that reason, we are doing this 1-year lease with a 4-year option. We are also looking, quite frankly, at new space, better professional space across the street, which has a much better presentation. But in terms of this site, we are cleaning up the front of the site. We are going to be painting the site. And we have already ordered a brand new logo appropriate awning that will cover the front and take down the old presentation. It's an older picture you're looking at there, but a lot of this work is already in process, and we're well aware and sensitive to that.
Thank you. I would love to see a photograph of when you do spruce it up, because I think having bought up storefronts is not really the right message that we would like to send to our community.
We agree, and that's exactly why we've taken those actions.
Thank
And
you.
share that picture once the work is complete, Fenioski.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so I'll call for a vote. Dr. Katz?
Yes.
Melanie Hartzog?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Calamia?
Yes.
Dr. Dave Shoxi?
Yes.
Helen Arteaga Landaverde? Barbara Lowe?
Yes.
Robert Nolan? Robert Nolan?
Yes.
Hernandez Piñero?
Yes.
Frida Wang,
Yes.
Fenioski Peña Mora.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So the resolution passes. Let's move to the next one. Dr. Peña Mora, you also have this one.
Number 9? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes.
Yep.
Authorizing the New York City Health and Hospital Corporation, New York City Health and Hospital, to execute a customer installation commitment, CIC, with the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services, DCAS, and the New York Power Authority, NYPA, for an amount not to exceed $27,714,280, including a 10% contingency of $2,040,842 for the planning, design, procurement, construction management, and project management services necessary for Phase 2 energy efficiency upgrades, the project, and New York City Health and Hospital Lincoln, the facility. This was discussed in the Capital and Information Technology Committee on November 5th, and it was approved to be forwarded to the board for consideration.
Good afternoon. New York City Health and Hospitals and Lincoln Hospital, we're pursuing a second phase of energy efficiency projects at Lincoln Hospital to further reduce our energy consumption and decrease greenhouse gas emissions. I'm joined by Cyril and Marcus from our energy team on the line in case there's any specific technical questions. Already phase 1 work is happening, which is the upgrade of 21 of the facility's 39 air handling units, replacing 100 induction units, upgrading over 200 wireless thermostats, as well as replacing fluorescent lighting to LEDs. Phase 2 involves additional upgrades of the remaining air handling units, induction units, lighting, elevator modernizations, chiller and riser upgrades, and the replacement of light fixtures and upgrading our BMS system. Next slide. We would deliver this work in collaboration with Department of Citywide Administrative Services and NYPA through the Encore 2 agreement, which has 2 bridge agreements, and the 3rd agreement was just recently signed and is being finalized. The procurement path here is NYPA is managing the program. They fully have design build services, and we were able to leverage the New York City Public Works Investment Act to deliver these projects under design build. NYPA selected Guth DeCunzo's Construction Management as the construction manager who is providing full services to deliver the work. And NYPA has an active MWBE supplier program, and there's an MWBE subcontractor utilization plan for this project. Next slide. This project, based on the number of large volume of different projects happening within the phase of work, there's many different subcontract agreements, which involves a large number of firms and $20 million worth of work, $6.7 million, which is towards MWBE firms, all of the firms listed there in this utilization plan. This project is expected to be complete in December of 2022. Next slide. And the project budget is indicated here for a total project budget of $27.7 million. I'm happy to now take any questions regarding this project. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from board members? Hearing none, I'm going to move on to a vote. Dr. Katz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Melanie Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Calamia?
Yes.
Dave Shoxi?
Yes.
Thank you. Helen Arteaga Landaverde?
Yes.
Thank you. Barbara Lowe?
Yes.
Thank you. Robert Nolan?
Yes.
Sally Hernandez Piñero?
Yes.
Frida Wang?
Yes.
And Fenioski Peñamora?
Yes.
Thank you. The resolution passes. You have one more, Dr.
Thank you.
Peñamora. Thank you, Christine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my marathon is almost over.
I know.
We're almost there.
Thank you. The good thing is that I'm working with a great team with Christine and the Capital Group, so thank you. Authorizing the New York City Health and Hospital Corporation, New York City Health and Hospital, to execute a customer installation commitment, CIC, with the New York Power Authority, NYPA, for an amount not to exceed $12,622,632, including a 10% contingency of $969,582 for the planning, design, procurement, construction management, and project management services necessary for the chiller plant upgrade, the project, and New York City Health and Hospital Metropolitan, the facility. This was discussed at the Capital and Information Technology Committee on November 5th, and it was approved to be forwarded to the board for consideration.
Thank you. The background for this project is at Metropolitan. Currently, we have two 1,100-ton chillers and 3 Marley cooling towers. The facility's total cooling capacity is 2,300, and it's below the needs of this facility. The chillers are past their useful life. And in 2007, we did do an upgrade to 2 of the 3 Marley cooling towers. The third cooling tower was installed in 1998. It's not in service and looks very scary. The IT service closets were upgraded during the course of EPIC, and so there's been additional load imposed upon the facility, and there's a dire need to increase our cooling capacity at the facility. This project will include the replacement of 1 existing Marley cooling tower and a new cooling tower, and install new fan coil systems for IT service closets in the facility's main building. Next is a picture of the chiller and the cooling tower, which I get very excited about. But we wanted to show how big these pieces of equipment are. These are substantial pieces of investment for our facility. Again, this is another NYPA project, and I covered the relationship of this agreement. So I'll go to the next slide. I do want to note, most importantly, this work will drive savings for our system. This project is anticipated to provide us annual savings in electric of $260,000 every year. And the project I presented prior was a $692,000 savings. Here, the procurement path was similar in that NYPA bid out the work through design build, leveraging the New York City Public Works Investment Act. And Guth DeCunzo Construction Management was identified as the most competitive and qualified construction management for this. For the type of work these are 3 bidders because it was major pieces of equipment being installed. Those bidders were Carrier Dynamic Mechanical and Interstate Mechanical. The lowest bidder here was Carrier Corporation, and there was a 30% MWBE goal for the work, and Carrier has submitted their plan, and they're going to meet all the criteria. So Carrier's subcontractor utilization plan is found in the following slide, denoting the service provider firms that will be participating in this contract. The total contract amount of $8.8 million, MWBE allocation of over $3 million, and a project completion is anticipated for March of 2022. Looking at the vendor of Carrier's qualifications, we found 3 evaluations, 2 of them excellent and 1 good. Carrier does provide ongoing maintenance service contracts for us at Health and Hospitals as well, and they're doing a definitely good job at that work. This provides you the budget of the overall project, the total breakdown of $12.6 million. And at this point, I'm happy to take any questions, concerns, or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Any questions from board members? Okay, hearing none, then I want to move on to a vote on this. Dr. Katz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Melanie Hartzog?
Yes.
Dr. Calamia?
Yes.
Health Commissioner Dave Shoxey?
Yes.
Helen Arteaga Landaverde?
Yes.
Barbara Lowe?
Yes.
Robert Nolan?
Yes.
Sally Hernandez Piñeiro?
Yes.
Frida Wang? And Fenioski Peñamora?
Yes.
Thank you. The resolution passes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So number 11 now, Sally Hernandez Piñeiro. You want to read it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Reads, authorizing the Executive Director of MetroPlus Health Planning, MetroPlus, to negotiate and execute an extension to the existing contract with Beacon Health Strategies, LLC, Beacon, to provide behavioral health management services through September 30th, 2021. and authorizing additional funding of $30,960,000 to cover the existing contract period and the extension contract period, and $2,054,494 for additional program and runout costs for one additional year, for a total not to exceed addition to the contract of $33,014,494. Okay?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Sally. Good afternoon. Talia Short, CEO of Metro Plus. I'm joined by Dr. Sanjeev Shah, Chief Medical Officer. So currently, our behavioral health services are delegated to Beacon. They have been delegated to Beacon since 2015. In December of last year, our board and H&H board approved a bridge extension, as shortly before the contract ran out, we gained the technical ability of bringing those services in-house instead of delegating it to another vendor. So we needed an extension since the contract was coming to an end, and then additional time to plan for the full transition. So an initial extension was requested and approved, and now we're coming for a second and last extension as we're getting ready to transfer those services in-house. Next slide. Just to remind the board, what are the services that are currently delegated to Beacon? They include utilization management, clinical programs. A big chunk of it is claims processing and payment. They maintain the behavioral health network. They do quality management, case management, customer service, reporting, credentialing, and back office operations. We will be bringing all of those services in-house. So you can see that this is a pretty significant lift. Specifically to the extension, Beacon's current contract term expires December 31st, 2020. Contract extension to cover period January 1st, 21 to September 30th, 2021 has been submitted to New York State for review. As I mentioned, we are planning on bringing those delegated services in-house. We are thrilled that we now have the technical ability to do this. We believe it's the right way to approach the services. People have medical and behavioral conditions concomitantly. They're not separated. And so by bringing it in-house, we'll have obviously more control over the quality of the services, over access, and more importantly, working more closely with health and hospitals and really combining the medical and behavioral aspect as they coincide in many, many patients. I'm happy to share that the plan began already the transitioning of some of the services, some of the quality responsibilities already being held by the plan, and we're working on other aspects of the transition. We expect that we will be fully ready to assume all operations October 1st, 2021. So we are seeking to extend the Beacon agreement term with current in-scope services through September 30th of 2021. And starting October 1st of 2021, limited runout services will be administered by Beacon for up to 12 months to cover any services that occurred during their delegation. Wanted to assure the board members that as we are transitioning and adding some more time to the contract, that we continue tight oversight of our vendor and making sure that our members are receiving quality services. So due to the plan's audit, the number of members who are utilizing outpatient services has increased by 10% compared to last year. This is something that we seeking to see. Obviously, more outpatient services presumably prevent crisis. Additionally, we are tightly auditing claims issues that were prevalent in previous years. And I'm happy to report that the denial rates due to the oversight went down from 13% to 7% this year. We also oversee all of the care plans of the most vulnerable members, the HARP members, to make sure that appropriate services are rendered to those members. And we make sure that Beacon staffing is adequate. Since they know that the transition is occurring, we want to make sure that they're still staffed appropriately and provide the right level of services to our members. Next slide, just a few highlights in terms of how we're planning on getting to go live of October 1st, 2021. The network development, which is a significant lift for the plan, meaning adding all of the behavioral health providers into our network, is underway. It has been underway for a while. We were delayed because of COVID. There probably a 4 to 5 month delay in building the network because of COVID. But it is absolutely underway at this point. And we are planning on submitting the behavioral health network to Department of Health for approval by April of 2021. The program design, the clinical design, has been completed, and we're now building the software to support the program design. In terms of claims processing, this is another significant undertaking, bringing this in-house. Claim system is undergoing currently needed upgrades with planned readiness for May 1st. We have started onboarding already key staff members, so they participate in the build of this program. And plans internal readiness is set presently to 4 months before go live to account for any unplanned delays. Slide. Extension pricing. The administrative cost that we're asking the board to approve through the end of September is $30,960,000. Total PMPM runout cost after the contract comes to an end through September 22nd is $1,850,000. And there are some additional programming and ad hoc runout costs of $204,494. Totaling $33 million, $14,494. I want to make sure that the board is aware that the way the contract is structured for the administrative cost, it is based on membership size. In 2020, our membership grew significantly, and so the cost for the contract increased proportionately. We made our best estimate as into what the membership is going to look like in 2021 and accounted for it in this NTE. But obviously, it's a little hard to know for sure what the membership is going to look like. And so the final cost may fluctuate based on the membership that we will have by the end of the contract. And that completes my presentation. Any questions?
Yeah, could I ask, related to the runout component, and maybe a broader question, the providers that are going to continue or that will be working with us, how much of an overlap is there with the previous providers, and how much of a challenge is it going to be with the runout situation, assuming a lot of these patients are chronic and will continue to have need for these services?
Our intention is to replicate the network that Beacon currently has. I can't commit to 100% replication, but that's the goal. So there is continuity. Additionally, the way plans are structured, even if we're not able to replicate to 100%, we're obligated to continue covering the existing providers for at least 3 months into us taking over, so that we have 3 months to work out any gaps that exist between the existing network and the network that we will build.
Thank you. Any other questions on?
I have a.
Yeah, sorry. I think you
Go ahead.
mentioned it in the last presentation, but all the data and they're working on our system, not their own system, correct? Like all of that stays with us? all the information, the medical record, the progress notes, that's all within our systems, correct?
So we have all of the claims data. We have been receiving all of the claims data. We do not have the clinical data from their systems. So there's a lot that we can deduce from the claims data and not so much that we can deduce from otherwise. Sanjeev, is there anything you would like to add to this that's different from what I just said?
Okay. Someone else had a question. Yeah, Dr. Peñamora?
Hi, how are you? I have a question. This is particular contract on a provider that we have had some challenges in the past, and that is one of the reasons why we're looking at bringing it in-house in addition to bringing some savings. Right now we're looking at another $33 million. Can you tell us, I have a couple of questions, but can you tell us what is now the total amount that we have contracted with them and for how long?
Yes, so the contract started February of 2015 and will end the end of September of 2021. So that's
2022, because we have the extension for the run out.
well, so you're right. So the official services will end September, and then there's with every vendor that we do business with that deals with our members, there is always an additional run out. So you're right. So services end in September and run out for additional year. So you're right. The initial amount was $76 million. So we're talking about the initial 76. Then there was an approval for additional 11,930,000, and now this is the last amount of 33 and 14,000.
So we are talking about that we have spent with this vendor over $120 million. And I wanted to understand what kind of conversations have we had with this vendor in terms of their diversity plan, in terms of the sub-consultants, the providers, because we saw that even in a data center, when you have those conversations with the vendors, they identify ways that they are able to be inclusionary. We saw in the pharmacy contract, but I didn't see anything in this particular presentation that speak to that issue. Can you please elaborate?
Yes. So there are 2 points that I want to make along those lines. So the first one, we did look at the diversity of the staff that they employ on our contract. And I can say that the majority of the staff that employed for our contract is females. So that's one part. We also looked in terms of minorities, and out of a staff of about 140, 150 or so, almost to be accurate, 76 of the employees who work on our contract are minorities. So that's in terms of the staff that works on the contract. Additionally, Beacon did provide us that they are working in New York State, not necessarily in New York City, but in New York State, with 11 vendors that are MWB certified, and with 8 additional vendors that are minority owned but are not certified. And lastly, there is a significant portion of our contract that is being subcontracted to a company named Adifax. This is a minority-owned company, but it's a national company. So they don't certify as MWB for our purposes, but Beacon did share with us that a significant portion of our administrative fees that go to Beacon then go to Edifax that is minority owned. So,
and do you know that percentage, or again, it sounds very general?
Yes. So I did request for a specific percentage. I don't have it yet. I will quote the response from Beacon. The response from Beacon was tremendous part. I did ask them to quantify, and I will share once I get the actual number.
I think it would be good, and I think this type of information is very helpful when giving a presentation, at least from my perspective, in order to understand what we're doing to ensure that, whoever we are doing business, try to, as best as possible, to represent the communities that we serve. I think your data in terms of the staff is very good. I'm so sorry that it was not included in the presentation to provide us that context, as well as the type of vendors that they use. So I would just encourage that in whatever next presentation you provide, to please include that information. I think it's valuable to really communicate how we are ensuring that our vendors kind of meet some of the goals that we have established for the communities and how we represent the communities that we serve.
We'll absolutely do.
Thank you.
I think
Go ahead.
that we did have the data, but because of an inability to submit it because of the timing of everything, we couldn't get it in the package, but we absolutely can get it to the board.
And I would love to see it, even though you weren't able to submit. I would love to see it if it is possible. If Colicia says that it's okay, I would love to see it.
Okay.
No
And the
problem.
second point, Talia, so in total, the period of time that it's going to take to create our plan from beginning to end is approximately 2 years? Is that?
I mean, with the delay due to COVID, our initial estimate was about a year and a half.
Right.
We did have a few month delay because of COVID. So in totality, that's what it's going to take. But in reality, it's about a year and a half.
I have a follow-on question to Sally. You were mentioning that you already started the process. What would you consider to be the progress what in percentage time? I know that the COVID situation has impacted your abilities to do the transfer, but are you in the beginning of 10% or you are more advanced than that?
I would say, to be cautious, I would say we're about 15% in all-inclusive in terms of program design, network, software upgrades, claims upgrades. I would say that, that's probably cautiously where we are.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so I would like to ask for a vote. Dr. Katz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Melanie Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Calamia?
Yes.
Dr. Dave Shoxi?
Yes.
Helen Arteaga Landaverde? Barbara Lowe?
Yes.
Sorry
Robert
to
Nolan?
say yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Helen. Robert Nolan?
Yes.
Thank you. Sally Hernandez Pinheiro?
So take a minute to editorialize and just say what a terrific opportunity this is, both for Metro Plus and H&H, to actually be able to manage our behavioral health care services. It's a stretch, but it's a great opportunity. So I vote yes.
Thank you. Frida Wang? Fenioski Peña-Mora?
Yes.
Thank you. And and I vote yes. The
And I
resolution
also got,
passed.
it's Anita.
Anita, I see you there.
Well,
Yeah. So you said yes?
yes.
Yes, thank you. And Jose Pagan, yes. So resolution passes. Thank you so much. Next, I want to thank Ms. Lowe for participating in the Joint Commission exit session at Henry J. Carter Specialty Hospital. Barbara, would you like to provide some feedback on that visit?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I was so moved. I was on the telephone. Of course, it was a virtual call-in for the briefing, for the closing session, and I was really impressed with what I was hearing. I heard a lot of elated surveyors who went through the Carter facility, and they were extremely complimentary to the staff, their performance, and the recognitions that staff get outside of our organization as well, such as the chief nurse. And also, they felt that our findings and everything taken all together was excellent, and that we came in a category of having no revisits, which happens to about 50 to 70% of surveyed facilities, which is astounding. So, I really commended the Carter staff, the leadership. They recognized Mr. Carter, who's a key factor there in terms of setting the tone, and also the fundraising he does for equipment for rehabilitation. So it was all in all a very good visit, and I was impressed with what I heard. I'm used to being in a room with surveys to hear and see what they say, but it was absolutely wonderful experience not being there to hear and see what they had to say about us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lowe, for the report and feedback. So I'm going to move on to VENDEC approvals. Since we began the process of approving contracts prior to VENDEC approvals, there are 11 new items on today's agenda requiring it, 6 have VENDEC approvals. There are 2 items from previous board meetings pending VENDEC approval. Since we last met, we have not received any VENDEC approvals. We will continue to notify the board as outstanding VENDEC approvals are received. So we move now to the President's report, Dr. Katz.
Well, thank you, and I'm not going to read the report. What I'd say about COVID, which is, dominates our psyches and our days, is that it's a very peculiar time right now. Because on one hand, the news couldn't be better, right? We have 2 vaccines that are more than 90% effective. It's an amazing achievement when you consider that the virus just appeared last December in Wuhan, and that the virus was genetically sequenced in February, and now we have large trials showing that the vaccine is effective. We also have new approved monoclonal antibody that we're going to be starting to use probably next week for patients who present early in the course of illness but have comorbidities. So that will make a large difference. Of course, we're continuing to use steroids and remdesivir. Our management of clinical patients is definitely better because of what we've learned. We use ventilators less, much more high flow oxygen, and the use of CPAP and BPAP, which are non-invasive methods of ventilation. They don't require intubation, and so are much safer. So while our hospitals are filling, the number of ventilated patients remains relatively low, and the death rate, while the number of deaths has been climbing, the percent death rate is way down. So that's, an amazing amount of good news for something that none of us had even heard of a year ago. The problem is that right now we're not in a very good spot for the next month. The vaccine is unlikely to be available widely, most people think, until March, April. There might be some vaccine for healthcare workers and the elderly, we hope by January. But meanwhile, we're going into a period where infection rates are rising, and while death rates are much, much lower than before, as an absolute number, if you get a lot of infections and therefore a lot of hospitalizations, even if it's a relatively small number of deaths, it doesn't make those deaths any less tragic or horrible. And so it really is a case of darkest before the dawn. We have really ahead of us, I think, what's going to be a very difficult month. And even though I, again, believe New York City will be okay, in part because, well, like, for example, today we have 8 ventilated patients in all of the 11 hospitals altogether. At our peak, we had 960. So, of course, relatively, things are great. But we also have incredibly traumatized staff. Because we were the epicenter of the epicenter, we have staff who've lived through horrible, horrible moments that know nurse, doctor, respiratory therapist, administrator should have to live through. And so we go into this growing number of infections with really traumatized staff. And that's difficult. And we're doing everything we can to support them, to assure them that through Danielle's excellent effort, we have enough PPE. That's not an issue. We have enough ventilators. That's not an issue. We have enough dialysis machines. That's not an issue. We will work to maintain staffing through our own staff by using our contracts for registry staff if we need to. We will again cancel elective surgeries in outpatient clinics and move people to do the inpatient work. That's not yet necessary. We still have capacity. I speak with all the other hospital CEOs. There's capacity across New York. There's just a lot of angst, frustration, distress about the numbers going up, and that's very hard to deal with. The other issue I just wanted to mention, I think it's a success, and Dr. Michelle Allen deserves a lot of credit for putting together a new policy regarding drug testing for pregnant women, which focuses on the fact that we don't view drug use as a moral issue. Drug use is a disease. It should be treated as a health issue. How we respond to it is based on what is best for the mother first and foremost, what's best for the baby first and foremost, and our consents will all reflect that truth. So we got some very positive feedback from the change in policy. It reflects some meetings that we've had with the city council, and I think there's great pride in the new policy of health and hospitals, which has been done collaboratively with our sister departments, the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and the ACS, the Children's Service Department. Thank you all.
Mitch?
Any questions? Yeah.
Yes, Mitch, I just
Yes,
have,
Sally.
we have patients do we have patients who have been admitted for COVID but are not being ventilated?
Oh, yes. Yes. So I think at this point, it's, I think the number I saw this morning was a little over 100.
Thank you.
But that's distributed, of course, over the 11 hospitals. So that's why, but at one time it was much lower. And of course, at one time it was much higher. So it's still relatively few.
Right. But we're seeing it increase.
Yes, and it's and it will continue to increase. It's not because the governor may take further actions, but in the absence of those actions, you would expect that with the holidays coming, the number of infections will continue to drift up unless there is, more in the way of, decrease. In the end, it comes down to decreased mobility. It's less about, I think what people now understand, it's less about what thing you close. It's more about the more you get people staying in their homes and not going out and intermingling, the fewer infections you get. So I think I know that the mayor and the governor are seriously looking at further restrictions. They're watching the numbers, and it's a very difficult calculus because on one hand, the more you restrict activity, the fewer hospitalizations you have, and that's great. On the other hand, the more hunger you have, the more people who get evicted because they can't pay the rent and become homeless. The more children don't get educated because the schools are closed. We know that socioeconomic status is heavily tied to health. And so trying to figure out what is the right balance of restrictions that doesn't cripple the society and yet keeps us from, minimizes the harm of this virus, I think is a a question that everybody finds difficult, and obviously there's no right answer. You
Right.
have to decide what, I mean, even when we had the absolute shutdown in March, April, we still allowed for groceries, we still allowed for pharmacies, we still allowed people. So, you know, everything is an attempt to balance what are really the essential activities of a society against the knowledge that if you really wanted to prevent any infections, you tell everybody to get into their home and not leave.
Right.
Except you can't run a society that way.
Right.
Dr. Katz, this is Barbara. How involved are we with the schools? Any testing or collaboration maybe with the health department for tracking any cases in the schools?
So thank you, Barbara. I think one of the conclusions of the extreme amount of testing in the schools was schools are a very safe place. And it's undoubtedly because within the schools, the children are wearing masks and the children are being socially distant, which is different than how they may well be among their friends when they're not in school. So the testing revealed very few infections. The infections that were seen appeared to be more consistent with community transmission than transmission in the schools. And I think there will be a major effort to reopen quickly, especially for the younger children, I think, and special education. I think the realization is both that the younger children are even less likely to carry COVID, and then conversely, the younger children have so much more trouble with virtual learning. I think, you know, by the time you're in high school, college, it is much more likely that you're going to get something out of virtual learning than when you're 7 years old. And so I think starting to, you know, much as when we closed down the city, we didn't close down the grocery stores. I think a strong message in sort of public health increasingly is early childhood education, special education really should be considered an essential service, because the substitute of virtual learning is not a satisfactory substitute for young children or special education, but might be a satisfactory substitute for high school children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you seen, you know, I've been reading about other increases in other illnesses because of delayed treatment during, you know, the early surges and the shutdown. And are we seeing that too in our hospitals?
Our hospitals are still lower in overall census than historically. So we still have people staying away. And I know this from my own patients, that many people, you know, feel that it's simply, you know, not worth the risks of going into healthcare facilities. I think we've done everything possible to make our healthcare facilities safe. But, you know, I certainly think that it's sensible for people to weigh the risks. And if they have a, you know, it's not an easy calculus, and you can't tell anybody how they should they do their mammogram now, or should they wait 6 months? Should they do their colonoscopy now, or should they wait 6 months? I mean, obviously, if someone has, you know, substernal chest pain, although sadly some people did stay home because their fear was so great. But if you have substernal chest pain, you really should go to the emergency room, right? If you have high fever and have signs of infection, you really should go to the emergency room. I think where the hardest issue, Frida, where the doctors themselves are not sure, is like things like cancer screening. You know, should you get people in to keep up with the mammograms, the pap smears, the colonoscopies? Should you be telling people, you know, it's your decision, you weigh it? I mean, obviously it is always people's decision, but what should you recommend? My patients ask me all the time, should I do this or should I wait until COVID is over? Not an easy calculus.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so for the committee and subsidiary reports to do a virtual meeting setting, the committee and subsidiary reports were emailed to you for submission into the record. Are there any questions or comments about the reports? Okay. Is there any old or new business to come before this board?
Mr. McGon, it's Bob Nolan. I'd just like to make a statement about a matter that came up earlier regarding the data
Yes.
center. I moved away
Yes.
from the meeting for a minute or so, and I called Mr. Mastromano over at Jacoby, the CEO, and he assured me that that the data center is not under his jurisdiction at Jacoby, nor the number of people who work there. He doesn't know that. It's all under, as you know, the jurisdiction of the IT unit down at the central office. So I just wanted to clarify that as a matter that is not a local issue, it's more of a citywide issue under the direction of the central office, as you know. But I would like to know that when that comes about over the next couple of years, what the employment impact will be on New York City, preferably the Bronx.
Understood. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bob.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. So if there's no further business, then I declare this board meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia and David. Another successful virtual meeting.
I can't believe it. Nice job.